Hello, and welcome to my video showcase for my UEFN level. This level was designed to showcase Fortnite's new player movement system, and it does this by placing the player in a short obstacle course that requires them to utilize all of the player's movement capabilities in order to reach the finish line. In Fortnite, the player has a very deep movement system designed to provide a fluid and efficient means of traversing their environment. This is achieved through combining standard movements, such as running and jumping, with more advanced movements such as wall climbing, mantling and rail grinding. The resulting movement system is very fluid and really fun to play around with, but due to the open-ended level design of Fortnite's maps, the system just does not get many chances to shine. Looking up any parkour obstacle maps on the community-made area will give a huge number of just near identical levels, and the vast majority of these just resemble really arcadey obstacle courses reminiscent of Fall Guys or Mario, and they just do not serve to show off the movement system and its full capabilities. So what I wanted to do specifically with my level was showcase the movement system in an environment that would not be out of place within Fortnite's world. Specifically, the course would adopt a more realistic approach in its aspects, such as its layout and visual design, and the benefits of this would be the full range of Fortnite's movement system is showcased, with its potential fully explored within a game environment that would be more in line with something found on Fortnite's map. Firstly, I had to know all about the different areas of Fortnite's movement system in order to fully understand the full scope of what needs to be shown off in the level. Fortnite's gameplay loop has a strong focus on tactical evasion and utilising one's immediate environment to perform manoeuvres that would give an advantage during a firefight, and this is exemplified through the inclusion of various movement methods intended for evasion as well as scaling to vantage points. First of all players possess a basic movement system, and it consists of standard walking, jogging and sprinting cycles along with jumping and a separate crouched locomotion system. No player has a higher base speed over the other, unless affected by power-ups found in the game. To enter the new advanced traversal mode, just start sprinting. Sprinting unlocks the new movement abilities, such as sliding, mantling and wall scrambling, to name but a few. Players should be aware though, as sprinting and jumping will inevitably deplete their stamina bar. Another feature is jump exhaustion, where jumping multiple times in a row will eventually deplete the player's forward momentum. Great care must therefore be taken when traversing the environment in order to maintain the highest speed possible. The first mechanic to showcase is mantling. So when the player jumps up to a ledge that is within their jumping range, they will be prompted to press jump again and then climb up onto that ledge. This makes traversing large gaps so much easier and provides some welcome forgiveness when a player misses a key jump. The next mechanic is wall scrambling. So sprint up to a wall, jump, and then hold jump when prompted in order to get your character to run up the wall. You'll gain an amazing amount of height whilst doing this, and this can be used in combination with mantling, as a player can wall scramble up to gain enough height to then mantle up on that ledge that wouldn't be possible with regular jumping. Next, we have wall jumping. If the player positions themselves so they are side onto a wall whilst jumping, they can perform an additional jump off of that surface. With enough walls positioned together, the player can perform this move up to 3 times in a row. It should be noted, however, that this move does not gain much height, and is more a means of covering greater lengths than the base jump allows. Some additional mechanics include being able to grind on rails at great speeds, and sprinting up to a ledge and jumping off last minute, causing the player to take a great leap, providing them with greater height and distance than a regular jump. All of these movement mechanics can then be collated together in a comprehensive graph, like this one. This showcases the animation state machine of the player, visually representing what movements can be used, what moves can transition to one another, and what movements are locked until a prior move is made. Now that all key movement mechanics are established, I could move on to thinking of the theming and inspiration for my level. I had mentioned previously that I found existing parkour maps in Fortnite too arcadey, and I wanted to take a more realistic and grounded approach to the map's visuals and structures. By this I mean utilising more subtle 3D platforming that could be incorporated into the environment rather than through explicitly laid out platforms. This was heavily inspired by the real-world sport of parkour, in which athletes learn to see patterns in their environment to find pathways from A to B. From a level designer point of view, this can be achieved through keen utilisation of affordance and level composition. So two existing products that would act as the main inspiration for the design of my level were Uncharted and Mirror's Edge. These games make expert use of player affordance to direct players where to go, all without using a compass or any form of explicit UI. In turn, I had to look at the world design of Fortnite in order to gain inspiration for the visual design of my map. Aside from the obvious fantastical elements of the game, the map's locales are reminiscent of real-world locations, albeit crooked and very cartoonified versions. With these in mind, I decided to set my level in an urban setting, with transitions between suburban and deeper urban areas serving as setups for exploring new obstacles and ideas. Now I'd like to walk you through the level itself. My level can be divided into 4 distinct sections, each with their own visual theme and premise. The player begins in a pleasant suburban garden surrounded by houses and hedges. Leaping over the hedges, they make their way up scaffolding and up to a window via the nearby roofs, taking them through a cluttered corridor culminating in a huge leap onto some city rooftops. This section was intended as an introduction to all the basics of Fortnite's movement mechanics, and the absence of any severe danger means that the player can feel free to make as many mistakes as they may need to make before they continue through this section. The section after this takes place on a set of city rooftops. Here, the player is introduced to the potential for death as a consequence for mistakes, as a way of upping the intensity of the level. It also introduces the wall jump mechanic off of a nearby billboard. Sliding down a vent at the end, the player enters a factory, flooded with lava. This is where the biggest jump in difficulty occurs within my level. Players must negotiate both the lava and lethal crushers that cross their path. After that gauntlet, the player rides a rail down to the end of the factory, collecting coins on the way. This is the final section, and where the most advanced moves must be performed. It serves as a culmination of what the player has learned, and as an all-encompassing showcase of the movement system. Successfully finishing this section will lead to the finish line and fireworks. Now that I have showcased the level, I would like to walk you through some of the methods I used to design it. As mentioned before, games like Mirror's Edge and Uncharted are effective at balancing immersion and player direction through effective use of affordance, which I believe my level has done to a strong standard. There are multiple instances of leading lines throughout the level, taking the form of planks or debris on the ground, or vines pointing up to a ledge. The effectiveness of these features lies in their ability to subtly influence the player's current direction, drawing their eyes towards points of interest without standing out from their environment, such as in the case of neon arrows or text pointing, "Here, this is your goal." Ledges were also marked with tarp or coloured cloth to make them stand out, subconsciously indicating to the player that this is a ledge that they can climb and somewhere that will take them closer to their goal. The only point in the level where I couldn't be this subtle was at the vent just before the factory, because the vent just blended in too much with its surroundings and it was difficult to make stand out without putting the arrow there. I also ensured to put extra care into the composition of my level. At the start of multiple sections, there is a clear sense of balancing placed on the screen, with important areas emphasised through effective lighting, framing, and contrast with their surroundings. Take the starting point in the garden. The game starts with the player's camera pointed directly at the window in the building at the end. This is the primary goal of the player, with everything surrounding it constructed to frame it in a way that their eye is inevitably drawn to it and stays focused on it. This is thus aided by leading lines pointed towards the goal in the form of the planks on the crates, which act as an instantaneous objective to aid the player towards their final goal at the window. Some more overt player direction in the form of coins are there just to act as breadcrumbs. They're a necessary inclusion to help lure players towards objectives, and are just an extra way of gamifying it, really. This design principle is utilised in multiple areas of my level, resulting in vistas that are visually pleasing and practical for helping with navigation. The flip side of this is anti-affordance, which is the composition of levels to draw players away from points rather than towards them. In my level, this usually occurs naturally, with less interesting areas receiving less in terms of meshing or decoration. It creates a natural contrast with the areas more populated with objects, which the player is more naturally drawn to as a result. Other cases include just straight up blocking off areas with a visual barrier, such as a wall. In order to maintain the player's engagement with the level, I ensured that each section brought something unique and interesting to the table. Each section was visually different while still cohesively fitting the whole theme of the level, and in general there is a good sense of pacing found throughout. To help replicate the sense of possibility and freedom that is presented by the act of parkour, I added a couple of branching paths to the level, most notably in the factory and cityscape sections. Not only did this provide a slight sense of player autonomy, it also added a practical element of balancing. I tailored some branches to offer a more difficult challenge with the payoff of a faster route or more coins, as a way of incentivizing players to test their skill with the hopes of a reward. In general, the flow of the level is enhanced through my good use of affordance, as mentioned previously, which allows players to intuitively navigate the level through subtle cues taken from their environment. Unfortunately, level flow was not always so good when developing in UEFN, because by default, the player's stamina mechanic meant that they could only get so far before getting tired and having to wait for their stamina bar to recharge. This initially resulted in progress becoming far too slow. In general, the stamina mechanic is a feature that I really do not like within Fortnite, as it's just poorly balanced. It runs out far too quickly and takes ages to recharge, making it a pain for navigating large maps, like in the Battle Royale mode. Fortunately, UEFN allows developers to modify certain settings belonging to the player character via the Island Settings tool. From here, I was able to switch off the stamina depletion as well as jump fatigue. The player's now unrestricted movement made the level much easier to traverse as a result. One particular area that received criticism was the factory area, arguably the weakest aspect of my level. Points were made about the crushers, saying that their timing meant that some players had to stand and wait before being able to pass. In hindsight, this obstacle wasn't really a good fit for a level meant to showcase a movement system. There are a couple other areas that I noticed during testing and from my own observation where pacing does falter a little bit, namely a couple of the rail grinding sections, especially the rail grinding section right before the finish line, which is very long and in hindsight just feels like it just pads out the level instead. With all this being said, I have learned a great deal from developing this level, and I hope you have enjoyed watching. Thank you, and see you later.